Chafic, could you tell me a little bit about Ericsson's view of 5G and what the next year will hold in store?
I think 5G is happening now. So we are seeing it everywhere. I would say we're a bit surprised that the demand is so high. The interest is high. Now this interest will hopefully develop into demand. So this is how we see it. I think it's no longer a matter of how we do it, but it's a matter of for each service provider when they are going to go ahead with it.
It seems as though deployment cycles have sped up and plans for 5G are coming sooner than perhaps we expected. What use cases do you think are really driving that, and why is that happening?
Well, what we are seeing the most out there is the normal enhanced mobile broadband use case. This is the mainstream, I would say. You know, more data, basically, more connections. This is what we are seeing as the initial seed. But the reality is we don't only want that. We want the other use cases to come and play. We want the massive MTC or basically the critical MTC to come into play, because we believe that this is where the money is, and that has not yet started. It's still, I would say, it needs a few things to happen before we can see it. From a regulatory perspective. Legal perspective. I mean, if we have driverless cars and 5G networks, doing the security, obviously you need some regulation around these things. So this has not happened yet. So I think the initial deployments will be for enhanced mobile broadband and fixed wireless type of, fiber substitution or substituting fiber. I never thought I would say that, but yes, substituting fiber with 5G.
Great. And then just looking at those use cases in a bit more detail, you talked about the regulatory or legal roadblocks or issues that need to be resolved. What are the technology obstacles or barriers from true 5G deployments right now?
To be honest, I don't think it's a technology issue. I don't think there are any technology barriers. I think the standard will take time to finalize. We have only one release that has been out in December 2017. So there's another. The second release will be in June this year. This will follow its course. But already we are developing standard software to be rolled out in Q4 this year, basically. So there is no real technological hinder.
Okay, great. So do you see the technology being an evolution within the operator networks, or do you see there being wholesale changes coming in the next kind of 6 to 9 months?
I think it's two sides. One will be a continuation. The enhanced mobile broadband will be a continuation. So we're hoping the service providers are going to be able to monetize it in a better way that they are monetizing LTE. But the big change will happen on the digital, I would say industry digitalization, where those use cases that I spoke about, the critical MTC use cases, where we need to actually, the service providers would actually need to go sell it to verticals and different industries, and that is a transformation on its own, because service providers are not actually organized that way, so they need to move towards that direction to be able to address those revenues coming from that stream. And this is where I would say the bulk of the revenue, the additional revenue, will come from. There will be a lot of revenue coming from the normal enhanced mobile broadband, which is faster speeds and more connections to do more video, but on the smartphone. But then the other ones will be where the additional revenue will come from, and we're hoping they can go tap into it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So then, which of those additional kind of use cases or markets do you see being the ones in the shorter term that are going to benefit the carriers and the operators most from a revenue perspective?
Well, obviously it depends on the country, because for example, industrialization. So there's one there is one use case related to manufacturing, for example. I mean, if the country has no manufacturing, obviously the operator in that country will not address it. So it really depends on the country. But I would say in GCC we have a certain level of industrialization. We have oil and gas, for example, and I think that those can addressing those industries would be a good start. A good seed, basically.
Great. And then I guess from Ericsson's perspective, how are you helping them to achieve this, and how are you approaching operators differently than perhaps you were with 4G deployments?
Yeah, I mean we're trying. I mean obviously we're here in this conference, and we're trying to say to advise them on what we hope they would actually. Because at the end of the day, I mean we want the operators to be able to monetize it. I mean, it's in the industry advantage. If they can't monetize it, then obviously the whole chain will suffer. So we want the operators to take this seriously. So our approach is very serious and pragmatic one. I'm telling them, please, do what you need to do. Don't give up. Try to go get the additional revenue, because otherwise, why would you do it? So we're trying to have this type of dialogue with them,
right.
At least.
And then I guess from your point of view as a leader within Ericsson, what do you identify as being the key attributes of a good leader, and what do you look for in your team and people who are coming through the ranks when you look for a future leader?
Obviously, this is a personal question. So for me, I think it's attitude. So I think I judge, it's maybe not the right word to say judging, but for me having leadership is about the attitude. It's about responsiveness. It's about dedication. It's about perseverance, but also it's about attitude. It's about taking what you're doing seriously enough to enjoy it. And when you see this in people, when you see this authenticity of the enjoyment of what they're doing, then I believe that, for me at least, those are the good leaders.
Right.
So,
and at a time of quite significant change in the telecoms industry, how are you embracing that change and encouraging Ericsson and your teams to take advantage of that opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, our industry moves so fast. I mean, it's we have a demand. The demand problem is excess demand, actually. So it's unfortunate, that we see that as a problem. Change is there. It's something. I mean, I cannot think of a year in the last 5 or 6 years where we are not changing consistently and trying to keep up with where we need to be. So I think it's if we cannot cope with it as a company or as individuals, then we are in the wrong industry. I think we need to go to other industries. Our industry is a fast-paced, fast-moving industry, and for me, that's what makes it exciting.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, Sam. You're welcome.
Okay.
Cheers.